This is what's been going on for the last 10 days. If you think you're struggling, it's just because the markets are just in this dead zone.
What you're about to see is a video snippet from inside the boiler room. Every single morning before the open of the US stock markets, I analyze dozens of stocks and then decide on the trades that we're gonna look at for that day with dozens of traders. We all get together, execute trades, chat some, and make some money together on a Zoom conference call. Go to thepatterntrader.com/club to find out more.
So we're at a level in the Dow around this 35,000 area that I think is just extremely tricky. This is where all of these tops are. So, you've got a huge distribution level through here. So it's going to be very difficult, I think, to plow through here. So, I'm just kind of looking at this top as a top, as a demarcation zone that very unlikely we're going to get through. Now, we could just muck around here. There's a lot of stuff that we could do in here. But, if the market has made a top on balance, I think it's going to find its way lower. So I'm always looking at that, and you can see what a mess it's been. This is what's been going on for the last 10 days. And, if you think you're struggling, it's just because the markets are just, in this dead zone. So now we have this consolidation zone. You had a bit of a double bottom here, which indicated that, you could have this short covering rally, which came on Friday. But it didn't last. So this is what I'm talking about. You can see that the Dow Jones opened higher, went higher, and then the minute it started to go through the previous day's close. And I said, well, that's just, setting up the conditions for a key reversal, makes a new high, close on the low. And so I just start getting short just above that unchanged level. So it doesn't look like much, but I got some nice money between where I got in and where it is now. I got out of half my position. I'm still in the other half, and I made a nice chunk of change, on that move. And so I do expect this thing to keep going lower, but it's got to now get through all of this junk. And so it needs to kind of build space. It needs to build whatever. And so, maybe you kind of get a bar like this, and then another bar like this on Wednesday. And then we have a much more defined risk reward zone. And then we build some space away from this thing so that we can. So it's just, this thing is an area that's just rife for, these kind of short covering rallies or these kind of collapses. And, every 2 hours is doing one thing or another. So, again, these things tell us that maybe this is starting to crap out here, and this is, right at an area where it should. There was a neckline here, it came up to the neckline and failed. So now this tells us, largely where the risk is on the upside. And now I just want to see a little bit more backing and filling so that I can kind of establish a more confident position going into Thursday. Maybe I don't even do it Thursday. Maybe we rally on Thursday and we sell into a rally. So it's just, you can see it's just a very, very difficult area in here. There's just all kinds of minefields waiting. And, you just take these small positions at your own discretion and try and carve out something. The IGV, which is the ETF for, all of the technology stocks. And you can see by and large, we are adhering to this very big downtrend line. And we're in a bit of a descending triangle here. Now, here's a bit of the rub that kind of always had me guessing. This was a very nice defined daily and weekly bottom. But whenever we see a bottom, you want to see it followed by higher lows and higher highs. And what we see is basically a pattern of lower lows, lower highs. So, until this thing kind of does that, it's still setting up a condition of a fake out. But here's what I'm looking at on all three of these charts, is that at the very end, they're staking out a reverse symmetrical triangle. Now, these can be continuation triangles. Go that way, can go that way. So we kind of have to wait for the market. But since this isn't a downtrend, I do expect, you have this kind of triple top here. I do expect this thing to start going this way and break to the downside. So again, for the next day or two, it's going to be really important to see how we behave, at this area. We just put a small little thing here and we start breaking lower from here. So this is the IGV, and it's in this reverse symmetrical triangle, which in and of itself, is not definitive. We just have to watch to see how, what I'm watching is to see, how patterns work. We looked at restoration and race, and we saw what looked like a double top, and then the market went higher. And this looks like a double bottom, but I suspect the market is still going to go lower and break that bottom and bust the implications of this double bottom. The more, we look at a bottom, if something is really bottoming, eventually the energy should correspond to that. If the market's bottom, then it should go higher. But this is just languishing and going lower. And so, I'm concluding that, we're going to come to the bottom end of this reverse triangle, and then go lower. And Moderna is the same thing. We've kind of got a bit of a reverse triangle going on here. We banged into the upper end. And so, I told you that I'm trying to build a position so that even if it goes higher, I continue to short into this thing. And it's a little bit dicey by, selling stock, because, your upside is pretty limited if you're wrong. So what I did right at this 186, 187 area yesterday, I was, again, just trying to stay consistent. And I looked at this being the top of this reverse triangle. So, there was a method to my madness. I said, we're at the top of this triangle. And so I bought the 180 put options for next week, the 20th, I guess. And I paid $5 for it. I mean, I typically don't like to pay $5 for an option. I like to pay 1 or 2 and try and double or triple that. But to my mind, I'm just looking at this as a pattern that eventually is going to give way to the downside. And it could take a while, or it could just be overnight. Now, in the case of alumina, it's freaking overnight. So, to me, pattern eventually will equal trajectory. Now, I don't know what that eventually will be. Do I, have to go through this kind of minefield for the next, 6 weeks? Maybe. But this is typically how I make a lot of money, where I spot something, start building a position in anticipation of a trajectory. And then you've got to have the mindset and the patience to just withstand this thing not doing anything. But to me, I'm like kind of looking to sell the rallies. And I just figured the top of this triangle was the place to do it. So again, you can see these very similar patterns. And, this is not really a reversal bar. So we're going to open lower today, but, I don't know how it's going to work out. It's, still got to, Dragon says he's having computer problems. So that's where and why I did it. I just bought these put options right at the top of this triangle. But you can see how I look at these patterns and then, start setting up trades around that. Where to me, this is the governing pattern. This is kind of, what this does in here, how it does it, when it goes. Those are the great unknown. But I do believe that this market is topped. And if a market is topped, on balance, somehow it's going to find a way lower. And that was the case with, ILMN. I mean, I've been looking at this thing for a long time. and I was going to get short today, but the freaking thing opened $30 lower. Maybe there was, some earnings last night. I didn't check. And now we're at the bottom of this channel. So, the markets go there, they do their thing. I mean, the pattern in alumina was all the way back here. This is in a downtrend. This is a bear pattern. And eventually, it took a while. You had to sit through all this. So this is where I feel like, I say something here that this is a bear market, and then it takes 3 months to go that way. Then I feel like I lose all kinds of credibility, and, you guys get stopped out and what have you. And then the market goes according to where it was. And this is the discipline of the market, is that we can see a pattern like here, but then it can take weeks and months to then go. And then in one day, you get paid. You have to sit through 3 months questioning yourself, wondering why you're allocating capital to something that's kind of not going, where everything else seems like it's working, and you always want to chase that next shiny object. And this to me is, an ongoing battle that I have, is that I see these things, but they may take time to work out. And then now you want to allocate your capital to something that is working. And then all of a sudden this goes that way and you miss it. So that is the challenge. But what I wanted to point out is that all three have this similar pattern. And that's really what I wanted to, so Alan says, can those blow up? So basically now what you do is you watch to see which way it comes out of the pattern. So if this thing started breaking out, then that's a cue to, perhaps get on the other side or, get out. So this is what I do, is I draw boundaries and then say, okay, is the market going consistent with this? So, out of this, we may retouch the top of this again, play in here, but eventually I expect to see that. Now, if we start coming out here, then, I'll probably start stepping aside, reevaluating. So I use these boundaries as a way to assess, so I'm looking at a lot of things, downtrend, busting of this pattern. So how this thing plays, if this thing started to come out, this side, then, I probably have to reevaluate. So all I do is I set up the structure now and then defer to the market to see what it's going to do. But at least I have a premise. I have a kind of a way of looking at things. So, I just, didn't just pick an arbitrary number here. When this thing hit the roof of this reverse triangle, this is where I bought these put options.
Hey, if you would like to trade alongside me every day and join our most prestigious program, then head over to thepatterntrader.com/club for more information.